It's time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Property Podcast. It's episode 136. I'm Rob B. With me is Rob D. And Rob D, I'm going to say a naughty word. This week's episode is called How to Get Done.
Whoa. We have to get the bleeping machine out of storage. We don't normally use bad words on this show.
Don't tell my mum, please.
Yeah. Well, yeah, bleeping or not, that is what we're talking about in this week's episode. We do get a lot of things done. And over time, we've kind of developed ways of making that easier. So we're going to share a load of them with you today. And hopefully you'll find something in there that you can use to get more done. Because all of us, let's face it, are doing a million things at once. Most of us are balancing jobs and property and family and all manner of other things. So all these little tactical bits that you can use to squeeze more out of each day is going to be for the better. And talking about squeezing out more, we of course have got a news story and a resource for you as well. But first, I'm going to ask you what you did this week, Rob, and I hope the answer is loads and loads. Otherwise, it'll kind of undermine the message of the episode.
Yeah, it would. This week, I have done loads and loads. I've been getting pretty obsessive with Trello this week. So I've upgraded Trello for business in one of the businesses, and I'm really looking at how it can be used as the main platform, the main go-to for the whole business. I won't go into it in detail here. I might do a course on it on the Property Hub at some point in the future, because at the moment I'm just getting geekier and geekier with Trello. And I know, Rob, when I take you through some of it after this call, you're going to be just as excited. Probably the only other person on the planet who will be, but that's why we probably work together. So I'd say Trello has been a big focus of my week, which may sound dull, but that's been like working in a theme park for a kid for me. So that's been awesome. And continuing with the recruitment drive as well. We're hiring in RMP and Yellow at the moment, so lots going on with that.
Well, I just feel like saying thank you for listening to the podcast so we can get onto the Trello chat afterwards, but no, we will stick with the rest of the episode.
But I know you've been busy because you've been back on your travels. And it's been a while. You're starting to lose your reputation.
It's true, but yeah, just popped over to Berlin quickly for the last week. Got some friends out.
As you do.
Got some friends out there, so had a really nice time and just really enjoyed the change of scenery as well. Actually, it should probably be another tip for this episode, because I find that just kind of having a little bit of a change of scenery, whether that's going to another country or just like, going to a coffee shop to think about something to get out of the office, I find really helpful when I'm trying to get things done or I'm trying to think of new ideas. But yeah, it was a really great break, but very, very cold in Berlin at the moment. It's the first time I think ever that I've come back to London and I thought, oh, this is toasty. It's just never happened before. So really good trip, but good to be back as well. Speaking of London, London is the focus of our news story this week, which is possibly the least newsy thing you've ever heard, because the summary is London property is expensive. So I'm not sure you're going to learn anything from that. But it does come with a nice fancy infographic thing, which we are fans of. So this is from findproperly.co.uk. And what it's done is it's mapped out the average cost of a one-bedroom property within a mile of each tube station in London. And it's mapped that all on the tube map. So you can click on the station of your choice. You can see how much a property costs to rent there and also along the rest of the line. So there's nothing massively useful to take away from it, although it is interesting. You might be able to spot the odd little area where prices are a little bit lower and there's the potential for them to increase, but prices are expensive everywhere is the main takeaway, I think.
It's a bit of a two-in-one though, Rob, because while it's a news story, it's an app as well. So you're getting a resource a week here and you'll get one at the end of the show as well. So we've doubled up. We're certainly getting stuff done this week.
Okay, that sounds like a lead in to me. Let's get on to the main topic, how to get shiz done. We do a fair bit between the two of us. So we've got the podcast, of course. We've got the Property Hub. We've got Yellow Lettings. Rob, you are a little bit busy running RMP Property. I write books. I write for other people. We've got our own portfolios. We've got families. There never seem to be quite enough hours in the day, yet somehow we always seem to be deciding to do new things. Like I thought I was busy before we had a weekly podcast and a magazine. Oh, I didn't even mention the magazine and all that kind of thing. But every time we decide that we want to do something else, we somehow manage to create time for it. And this is something that comes up when we meet people at meetups or at the summit. People ask us how we do it. Well, today we're going to tell you how we do it. So we've got loads of individual tips in this episode, some of which you might do already, some of which might sound awful, but some you might decide to pick up. And you only really need to take one thing away, give it a go, and it might make a difference for you. So a bit of a grab bag. Rob, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so the first one sounds simple, but it's probably one of the most effective things you can do is wake up early. It's something we both do as a habit, ongoing, even at weekends. You know, we're both up really early so we can attack the day. For example, the podcast we start at 7 a.m. every Friday. That's without fail. That's what we always do. It's a 7 a.m. start every single Friday. So at the moment it's dark when we're getting up to record, but that's fine because by the time most people are trudging into work, we've already completed a podcast. It's been sent to the editor. Show notes are done. We've decided on what's happening next week, and we've had a brief about the Property Hub as well. Now, that's not to brag, but that's to show you how effective you can be. If you set your alarm clock that a little bit earlier and just do a bit more, and you might say, oh, I get up early enough. Well, go to bed a bit earlier. Because most people, a lot of people I should say, are really effective in the morning. And even if you're not, by just stealing that extra hour or two in the morning, you can achieve so much more. So that excuse, I haven't got time to... ... that really doesn't stand well with me. You're just not prioritizing it, and you can always find time. So waking up in the morning allows you to achieve more than the average person. And in fact, just as people are munching away on their cereal, you're already making big inroads to your goals or your dreams or wherever they may be. And obviously for most people this will be property related.
I absolutely agree with that. I never used to be that way. When I was in my teens and my early 20s, I'd just hardly ever get out of bed. I'd be a real night owl, but something shifted for some reason, and now I wouldn't go back. I get all my best work done in the morning.
Something shifted for me as well, Rob, but I think it was 2 young children. So actually, I'm giving it all the big in, but I've got no choice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that'll do the trick as well. But yeah, you can mould these things to your advantage. It links into the next point we've got here, which is to manage your energy and work around what time your energy spikes. So maybe you're not an early bird kind of person. If you are the kind of person who kind of comes alive and is most able to get things done or be creative, whatever it is, at night, then that's fine. But the important thing is to be aware of that and to structure things accordingly so you can make the best use of that time. So I find, and I know you're the same, Rob, that after probably about 3 in the afternoon, I've really tailed off. So I've got better at arranging things like phone calls that don't involve that much brain power or replying to emails and things like that for later in the day. And I try to do all my writing first thing in the morning because that's when I'm best. It might be different for you, but the important thing is to be aware of it and so you can work around it. And there are a couple of things that you can do to maintain your energy as well. One of them is checklists. So it's a way of stripping a lot of the mental energy out of things that you do all the time. So when we record this podcast, we've got a checklist that we run through at the beginning and at the end. And it just means that we don't really have to think about any of the stuff that goes on around it. So we can concentrate on just doing the content. And another thing is being aware of decision fatigue. So scientifically, your brain does need energy to make decisions. And as you make more of them, you become tired, you become less good at making decisions. So any decisions that you can strip out of your day will be really helpful. So this is why Steve Jobs always wore the jeans and black turtleneck, so he didn't have to think about it. Lots of very successful people actually do that as well. And just having a routine, so you don't have to think about, oh, what am I going to have for breakfast today? You just have the same thing as always. It sounds boring, but it actually means that you're using up less mental bandwidth for bits and bobs, and so you can focus all of it on what you really want to be doing.
I'm a big believer in decision fatigue. When I first heard it, I thought that's ridiculous. How can just having the same thing for breakfast or wearing similar clothes or having routines really make a difference? But actually, you and I are the same, Rob. We get asked a lot of questions and get asked to make a lot of decisions very regularly. So the more you can cut down on that, it really does make an impact. So Don't dismiss it. Start looking into it because you might find it could be effective for you. Another thing that you should really consider and will help you be effective is focus on your strengths and working on your strengths. We've covered this before in episode 130. We'll link to it in the show notes. In fact, I'll mention it now. This week's show notes are at thepropertyhub.net/get-stuff-done. Now, that's episode 130, and as I say, you can find it there. But it makes sense. If you do something you're good at, you're going to get a lot done. But if you work on items, projects, tasks that are really a drag to you, something you're not very good at, your motivation level is going to drop, the quality of your work will drop. So it just has this negative spiral effect. Whereas if you're working on things you're good at, that momentum, the fact that you're doing good work will actually push you to do more and more and more. So work on your strengths and try and avoid the things you're not good at. And if you're not good at things, there's a way to avoid them.
There is. And that way is to outsource and hire. Now, this is something we talk about a lot, but there's a good reason for that. Without having a great team around us, we wouldn't be able to get done a fraction of what we actually do. And we talked about this in episode 132. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. But the important thing is to realize this isn't just for business owners. If you're an employee, but you invest in property as well, there is no reason why you shouldn't hire an assistant. Don't think, I don't deserve one, or that's only for a certain type of person. There's no reason not to have an assistant because they will be able to help you with a whole lot of stuff. Episode 132 goes over a lot of the kind of property-related tasks that you can get an assistant to do for you. But just in general terms, it's absolutely massive because it just means you don't have to do everything yourself. Once you've determined what needs to be done and roughly how to do it, you can then pass that over and not have to do it again. And so with lots of the things that we've launched related to the podcast and the Property Hub, we've done it at first and then we've passed it over to someone else, or someone else has helped us to develop it and then they've taken it on and run with it. So we've got about 12 meetups all over the country. We don't individually organise all of those because we've got someone else to do that. We came up with the concept, the general idea, roughly how things would work, and now it just kind of takes care of itself. And that's the power of outsourcing, because there's only a finite amount that you can do on your own, however early you get up. But by bringing other people into it, there's basically an infinite amount you can get done.
There is, and we're big fans of it. We don't need to go on about it too much more. It's episode 132. Again, it'll be in the show notes. The next one up, Rob, I quite like the sound of. I call it being strategically lazy. And it's related to outsourcing and hiring. And it involves asking two questions of anything that kind of crosses your desk, I suppose. The first question is, does this need to be done at all? And if the answer to that is yes, and often it's not, if the answer is yes, is then, could someone else do it? And by asking those two questions, you can get rid of quite a lot of things. There's just a lot of nonsense in the world. There are a lot of things that you get asked to do where if you just kind of ignore them, or if you say, do I have to do this? The answer will actually be no, and you can get out of it. But if something does have to be done, maybe you're not the best person to do it. So if you do have a team, it could be that you can pass it over. And if there's one thing that I've learned from the last couple of years as we've built our team around various ventures, it's that you might think that you're the only person who can get something done, but with a minimal amount of guidance, you can normally pass it off to someone else. So I find it a really useful discipline to get into. For anything that comes up, does it have to be done? Could someone else do it? And then that way you're protecting your energy to only work on the things that make the biggest difference or that you're best placed to do. I agree, Rob. I like the title as well, but it actually is a very effective method of going about things and one I use as well. Something I definitely use, as I mentioned earlier, is Trello. But I use it for many things, but one of the things I use it for is, and I know you're the same, Rob, is the to-do system. This is going to be very visual, so I'll try and talk you through it, but I'll definitely create a course at some point for the Property Hub. There you go. I've committed to it now, on how I use Trello in depth for to-do systems. But essentially, across all our businesses, we work on quarterly plans. And again, that's another tip, is have bigger, longer-term plans and chunk them down. Because what we do is we have 3 to 5 core things we're working on in every single business. And you list them down in Trello, on the board on your left. Then you put checklists for each task of those 3 to 5 cards within Trello. If you've not used Trello before, this might not make sense now, but it's really easy to use, so when you go into it, it will do. Then in the next column, it says this week. So you've gone from this quarter to this week. Each week, have a set time to review your quarterly priorities, move tasks over from your checklist into this week, and then in the next column, have to-do lists for today. And then each evening or morning, depending on how you like to work, I like to reset my to-do list for the next day in the evening so I can mentally switch off, move them in the to-do list for today. Hopefully this is still making sense. And then with the to-do lists for today, not only will they be in my Trello and linking back to the big quarterly project in some form or another, but actually I can put normal day-to-day stuff in there as well and link it to my calendar, because I work very closely in Trello on my calendar, to then put designated times to do those things. Because what a lot of people do is they overload their to-do lists and set themselves up for failure, because they'll never actually complete all the things they put in. When they put it in, they're ambitious, but when they're living it and trying to get through it, they feel like they fail because they don't. So set times for it. And if you're finding you can't find enough time in your calendar to get those things done, then remove it and set it back for another day. So that's a real quick tour of how I use Trello. Rob, I know you use it in a very similar fashion. We will do more on that, because I think it's going to be very useful for people, especially if you use Trello. And even if you don't, it's easy to pick up.
Yeah, the great thing about Trello is it is such a visual way of looking at it. And I'm looking forward to that course, because I know that you're even deeper into it than I am. But I really like the fact that whatever you're doing today, it's linked in to your quarterly goals, which of course are linked in some way to your life goals. So it means that you're always kind of by default working on something that matters, rather than just doing whatever seems urgent right now, which is quite cool. And tied into that, another little tip is that I like to put at the top of my to-do list whatever seems like it's going to make the biggest impact. So it's quite easy to get up and start going through some emails or doing the fun bits, but I like to put the most impactful thing first. And again, it's tied into getting up early. So it's like, well, if something kicks off at 9 a.m. and for the rest of the day I'm not going to get any work done at all, what can I get done before 9 a.m. that will make a big difference to what I'm trying to push forward? So it all kind of ties together in that kind of way. Next up is my big one. I am a real believer in this. Remove distractions, especially digital distractions. That means deleting apps from your phone. It means turning off notifications, definitely. And we've got a tool that will help you if this is something that you struggle with, which we'll put in the resource of the week coming up in a minute. I think that this is big, because if you think about things like Facebook or Twitter or whatever else, they're basically designed to interrupt you and distract you. That's what they do, because they make money when they stop you from doing what you're doing and you go over to see what's going on. And they're so brilliantly designed to capture your attention. It means if you're not careful, you can spend all day never really getting into the groove of anything, because you're constantly being distracted. So I think opting out of that and turning off notifications for everything is massive. I'm not saying don't use these things at all, because there is value there a lot of the time, but just do it on your terms, not sporadically throughout the day whenever your phone vibrates. Rob, I know that you are a big believer in this as well.
Oh, massive. I do see lots of people just lose days in Facebook or WhatsApp. I mean, I don't even go on Facebook anymore, because I just saw it as taking stuff away from me and not giving me anything. So I don't even have an app on my phone for it or anything like that. I'm very selective on the apps on my phone. I'll delete anything if I think it's distracting me. I'm pretty hardcore on that now. Notifications, I just won't let them happen. I control my day. I don't let my smartphone control me. I think that's one of the biggest, probably maybe the biggest one you can take away from this, because in a day where we're constantly getting nudged or vibrated at or pinged or wherever term you want to use non-stop, actually, if you can remove that, then suddenly you're in a whole different area which most people don't exist, which is an area where you are constantly not being distracted. There are enough distractions out there. You can self-remove them, so make sure you do. Another one sort of linked to this, Rob, is email. Now, email is one that I struggled with for a long time, and I feel like I've cracked that nut now. And I know many, many others struggle with it as well, because emails, it's tempting to go into emails and have a look. In fact, scientists have proven that it sets off endorphins when you go into an email, because it's that social interaction. That's the same with pings and notifications as well. It gives you that little buzz because what's happening, and it feels like you're involved with the world. But actually try and get out of that habit of just constantly going into your emails. Set times of the day that you're willing to work in emails, and do not open it any other time. Now, you may say, oh, well, I can't because my boss or my clients, or trust me, the world will not fall apart if you tag your emails at set times. So you might say morning at this time for 1 hour and evening at this time for one hour, whatever it may be. But remember, emails generally are somebody else's agenda, not yours. So when you go into emails, suddenly other people are dictating your day again. Now, don't get me wrong, Rob and I love emails, and particularly from podcast listeners and hubbers and so on. They're fun emails, but we don't always get fun emails. We get emails that aren't so fun, and suddenly, because we've opened our inbox, we're now distracted, and we're now being delegated a new task that we didn't expect, and we were in the middle of something, but because curiosity got the better of us, that's what's happened. So I've become really disciplined in this now, and it's made a big impact. And Rob, I know you're very much on the same thought pattern on this one as well.
Yeah, definitely. We could do a whole episode about email and how to use it well and how not to fall into the trap. So I'm going to restrain myself from commenting too much on it. But I would say that the key thing is when you do check it, only check it when you're prepared to do something as a result of what you find. So the classic is checking email while you're in bed, about to go to bed at night. Don't do that. That's a really bad idea. It's the kind of thing where you might check your email, you'll see something that's bad news or that gets your mind whirring or something, and there's nothing you can do about it at that time, but it's still on your mind and it affects you. So just do not do that.
I don't even have my work's email on my phone anymore because I thought, how can I get out of this habit? And the easiest way to do it was delete it. And you know what? At a time, it felt like a huge, huge thing for me to do. I remember talking to you about it, Rob, and the world didn't fall apart. Incredible.
No, and I think you did it the smart way. It's like using willpower for this kind of thing is really hard. So if there's one thing you can do, just remove it as an option. That just makes life a whole lot easier. Okay, so these are all really ways to get more out of the energy you've got. We've all got a limited amount of energy, so we need to use it for its best purposes. But there are also things that you can do to boost your energy and give you more to work with. So these will not surprise you massively. Exercise is a big one. This is something that I do a bit of every morning. I've played around with exercising at different points in the day to try and give myself a boost when I'm starting to lag. But, that works. Of course it does. Meditation is another one that we've both experimented with a little bit. I think we've both struggled to kind of make it stick on a consistent basis, but it does make you feel energized afterwards. And also, I think that it helps you maintain energy by not using up energy on kind of worrying about things that you can't control right now. So like this week, I've been trying to put a deal together, and I found that while I'm just basically waiting for a phone call for someone to come back to me, it's kind of still in my mind, taking up some energy and meaning that I'm not putting my best work into whatever I'm meant to be doing at that time. And meditation is a really useful tool to kind of train yourself not to do that. So neither of us are exactly gurus on this, but I think it's worth getting into more, and I plan to try to make it more of a habit. And the habit that we have both managed to make stick very successfully is coffee. It works. It does help. It does help to boost your energy. There are limits. I think at the summits where we're there all day and we've got that coffee machine and it's free and it's really good, we push those limits and find the point where it just kind of makes you a bit shaky and not much use for anything. But up to a point, hey, it was there. It works. Why not?
Yeah, I've got to be disciplined. I've just got a proper coffee machine into the RMP office, so I've got to be careful because now I've got one of those machines that we have in the summits, or very similar to it, in the office, which I can just walk to up at any time. So I'm going to have to be very disciplined and not go above my 3 cups a day quota. But it does work. It may amaze you, but well, it probably doesn't amaze you, really, does it? But for most people, coffee is an effective tool, and it's one we use. In fact, this podcast didn't start today until my cup of coffee was in front of me. Right. Okay. So that's how to get ship done. We've covered a lot there. And the thing is, while there's a lot of info, we actually do all of them. Everything we've talked about there is something we put into practice and do. People, as Rob said, ask us, how do you do X, Y, and Z? Or how do you do all this stuff? It's not because we're particularly talented. It's really, we're just effective. And by doing these things, you can become effective too. You may already do some of them. Maybe it might be a bit challenging to suddenly start them all. So take 1 or 2, trial it, see how it works for you. And even if you just do one or two new things that you haven't done before, you'll find that you're so much effective and getting so much more done, I can assure you. And this is great for property. And, you can do the to-do lists like for property, like we described. But this can be related to any aspect in life as well. So the great thing about this topic is it's universal. So absolutely apply it to your property portfolios and building, your property empire. But apply this to every aspect of your life, because Rob and I do it for property, we do it for business, but we do it for other stuff as well. We don't just do it for those exclusively. So go ahead, try a few things and let us know how you get on. I'd love to know if you've got any tips as well. Go to thepropertyhub.net/get stuff done. That's thepropertyhub.net/get stuff done. And let us know your tips, or if you've tried any of these and they've worked for you.
So one of the points in there that we were the most adamant about was removing distractions. And the resource of the week this week is here to help you with that. We also talked about how if you can remove willpower from something and take it out of your hands, that makes life a lot easier as well. And something that's really tied into that is a couple of different tools, one for Mac and one for PC, which basically block distracting websites. So what they allow you to do is tell them the sites where you waste time. Maybe that's Facebook, maybe it's the football scores, it could be anything. But whatever it is, just tell them, then set a block of time, maybe an hour, and then it will not let you go on those websites for that period of time. So if you know that you'd otherwise be distracted, just remove it as a possibility and let the app take it out of your hands. So there's one for PC called Cold Turkey, and there's one for Mac called Self-Control. So there are others available as well that do similar things, but both of those are free, or at least have free plans. So if it's something that you struggle with and you want to go cold turkey and just break that habit in the first place, that could be a really useful way of doing it. So I like the idea that your technology can be distracting, but you're using technology against itself to stop it from distracting you. So it's pretty smart.
It is. You know what else is smart, Rob? People who leave 5-star reviews.
Yes,
they are very smart.
They really are.
And this week, we have a review from One Hit Kill. And One Hit Kill says, "Thank you for another great podcast. I nearly bought a property with 14k rental income, costing 200k. After listening to your podcast, I'm more comfortable to let this one go. It takes an outside view to see through the offer. Thank you again. Cheers." So thank you, One Hit Kill. We appreciate that review. And you know what? We would appreciate more. If you are enjoying the show and you're getting any value out of it, a nice way to say thank you is just going onto iTunes and leaving us a 5-star review. We'd be very grateful and we'll acknowledge it by reading it out. So if you are getting value from this and you haven't left a review yet, we'd be very grateful and we'll read it out. Absolutely. So go to iTunes. I say really simple, relatively simple. Just click on the review part, click on the 5 stars, write a few words, and we will forever be in your debt or repay you by making more podcasts.
Yeah, and the same goes for the Ask Rob and Rob episodes on a Tuesday as well. If you're finding those useful, please do leave a review. Those reviews are very impactful in terms of helping new people to find the show. So we really would appreciate your help. Okay, so next week, even if you don't leave us a review this week, it's okay. We'll still make next week's episode, then we'll review it. So next week, we're going to be answering a question that I know that you get asked all the time, Rob. I do as well. How much money do you need to get started in property? It's a really good question. And unlike a lot of these questions that we get asked all the time, there is an answer to it. A lot of the time you get these questions about should I do X and Y, and the answer is always like, well, it depends, what's best for you, blah, blah, blah. We can actually answer this question, and we'll be doing so next week.
So make sure you join us for that one. And remember, you may have already started in property and think, oh, I don't need to listen to that one. Trust me, some of the most valuable podcasts we do are the basic ones because it just reminds you of core key lessons. So even if you've got a property empire already or you've got a property portfolio that's growing quite nicely, make sure you join us for that one because I guarantee there'll definitely be a nugget or two that you'll get from it as well. So that's next week. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. We've been, other than the start, very disciplined and the beeper has been put away. So our editor Chris will be very grateful for that one. But next week we're back, as Rob said, with another episode that hopefully we can deliver loads of value again. As we mentioned, if you're enjoying the shows, please leave a review. But until next week, where you'll have 2 more podcasts on a Tuesday and a Thursday. Now, remember, you get twice the goodness. I'll leave you with a goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com.
And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.